Hello friends, welcome back. I am Jason, and today we're discussing the number one survival tool. What is the number one survival tool if you could just pick one thing? You knew you were going to get dropped off in the absolute middle of nowhere, or maybe the absolute middle of somewhere, some urban area, for who knows the length of time. What is the one thing that you'd want with you? You just didn't know. You just didn't know what the circumstances were. You didn't know what the time of year was. You didn't know how long you were going to be there. What's the one thing that comes to your mind before we even get started? In the comments section, pause this video in the comment section and tell me what that one thing would be. Now that we've taken care of that, I think a lot of people would choose a knife. That's, in the survival threads out there in the forums, a lot of people are going to say something along the lines of, with a good knife, I can accomplish all the survival tasks. I can make all the things that I need to survive with a cutting tool such as this. Shameless plug, this is my On 3 EDC, a knife of my design. Go to bearforestknives.com if you'd like one. Or maybe you would choose a larger blade such as this, such as a small machete. Or perhaps you're in the far north and you're worried about collecting all the firewood. You would choose an axe so you can get the bigger stuff and split the wood, get down to the dry stuff, and make survival happen with a bigger cutting tool. Now, I say yes, absolutely. If you are proficient with a knife, you can do a lot of the things that you would need for survival. You could potentially carve your way into trapping food. You could make yourself some sort of container out of tree bark, which we've done in previous videos. You can get yourself a friction fire. You can access the inner parts of dry materials, dry woods, and carve your way into a bow drill fire. You can do a lot of things with a knife, and you can accomplish a lot of goals in a fairly expedient amount of time, all things considered. However, I've been in a lot of situations where I just haven't even needed my knife at all. I've camped out a lot, and I haven't even pulled my knife out of its sheath. It's something that I want to have with me, and it's a very useful tool, very reliable tool. A fixed blade knife such as this one right here is basically bomb-proof. You can use it and abuse it, and it's not going to fail you. And I think that, yes, a knife is an excellent choice. A cutting tool of some kind is an excellent choice if you were going to be dropped off in the middle of nowhere and you needed to pick one thing. And a knife might be the thing you need to save the day. Or it might not. Maybe a flashlight right there. Maybe a flashlight is what you need to get yourself out of trouble. It's dark. It's the middle of absolute nowhere. And time is of the essence. There's danger in the area, and you've got to get out of that area in order to save your skin. And maybe a flashlight is all you need to be able to see your way out of that situation. Maybe it's an urban area and you're inside of a building, and now you need to navigate your way through the building, out of the building, whatever, and you just can't do it. You're completely blind without some sort of flashlight. Man, I don't know. It's a pretty handy device. Maybe a self-defense item is what you need. Maybe that's the number one survival item, depending on where you are. Maybe you're in an area with big, dangerous wild animals. Maybe you're in an area with big, dangerous human beings. And a self-defense tool such as this one right here could be the difference between you living or dying. I don't know. It's always going to be situationally independent. Do I feel better when I have something like this on me? Absolutely, especially if I've got my wife and kids. No matter where I am, especially in urban areas, because, in really, really remote stretches of wilderness and stuff, I don't feel the need necessarily to have this all the time. But if I'm in urban areas, man, it is nice. I do feel better when I have this on me, because it is my responsibility to protect my wife and kids and not anybody else's. And I am the first responder, and I need to make sure that I have this. Perhaps some sort of shelter, right? This is my sleep pad. This shelters me from the cold, hard ground. A tarp overhead, perhaps, if it's raining and it's snowing, it's freezing cold, and I need to be protected from the elements. It takes a lot of time. Anyone that's ever done it can tell you. It takes a long time to build a reliable weatherproof type shelter from natural materials. It takes a long time, and maybe you don't have time. Maybe you're not dressed appropriately. Yes, your first form of shelter is going to be your clothing, of course. We'll assume that we're clothed for this kind of scenario that we're talking about here. We're dressed appropriately, but maybe a tarp is what you need to survive the situation. Yeah, it takes a long time. It takes a lot of sweat equity to get yourself into a livable, survivable type shelter. And just bringing a poncho, man, a poncho is so small and so lightweight, and it could potentially save your life. Why would you not carry it? Maybe that's the number one survival item right there. Hard to say. Maybe this ground pad is the number one survival item. Perhaps a compass. Look at that guy right there. That's a marbles compass right there. A buddy of mine gave me that one. Daniel, thank you very much for that. It's just like my great-grandpa's compass that I'm too afraid to carry off into the woods because I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. But I was telling him about that, and he hooked me up with this marbles compass, and I love it. It's fantastic. Maybe a compass is your number one survival item because all you need to do is get out of this situation that you're in. You need to move from point A to point B, and you're not sure which direction is what. Maybe it's maybe it's a cloudy day. You can't really tell which way is north, south, east, or west, and you just need a basic west direction, and you know there's a road in the western direction. If you just go west, you'll hit a road and therefore find yourself some civilization and some help, some rescue. And a compass is all you need. It might be the number one survival item right there. Water this time of year is crucial. It's friggin' hot outside, and you will sweat bullets just sitting here. I'm sweating just sitting here talking to you, doing nothing, and I'm sweating. So replacing the hydration that you're losing might be the difference between you living or dying. And there's lots of different ways to go about that, from water purification tablets to drops to filters and boiling. All that kind of stuff is fantastic, and maybe having one of these things is the difference between surviving or not surviving. This is fantastic, but filters can fail. They can get clogged up. My old standby right here is a metal container. I can take water from anywhere that I find it, and I can boil it, and I can keep me safe from the waterborne pathogens. Will it get rid of chemicals without filtration? No, usually not, but I can boil water and I can make it, it won't make me sick in the short term, right? And that's kind of what I'm talking about here. So a metal container is really difficult to produce in the wild too. You'll get your survival gurus out there, your experts that are gonna say, I can make a burn bowl and I can stone boil my water and make it safe. Yes, you can, but holy crap, what an investment in time and energy to make a container of any size to boil water. And stone boiling is a pain in the neck. It requires, in a hot climate, you're going to be sweating bullets making this fire, boiling the rocks, getting the hot rocks hot enough to boil water. And that's not even counting making the container in the first place. The best I've ever come up with is a bark container. I used pine bark, white pine bark. It slips off really easy in the summertime, springtime and summertime. And you can make a pretty good size. I probably had about a half-gallon container, and you could do bigger if you had a bigger tree, and then I could stone boil in there, but still, and then you got to wait for it to cool down enough to drink it. It's a drag, and it's really, in my opinion, not a long-term solution. Maybe a very short-term solution, but you're gonna be married to that fire and that water container just to stay hydrated enough. And man, that's worth its weight in gold right there. This metal container. That might be your number one survival item, depending on where you are. What I look at when I'm talking about survival items and things of real value and importance, it's the things that are really hard to reproduce. I can't just go get them. Like, I can get tinder, I can get firewood, I can make myself some sort of shelter and stuff. It takes time and effort, of course, but I can never make, you could send me out in the woods for the rest of my life, and I will never make this metal container. It's just never gonna happen. And I guess the same thing can be said for a metal knife, but I have used stone tools, and stone tools can get the job done. As long as you have access to some sort of sharp, nappable type rock, you can get the job done. It's very slow, very tedious, and will never be as good as something like this, but it's still possible. Yeah, the stone boiling in some sort of burn bowl or bark bowl, that sucks. A metal container is amazing. And the same thing goes for shelter, a poncho or a tarp. You could spend a couple days building a shelter and it will still never be as good as your poncho. So what would be my choice? If you told me nothing, you said, hey, I'm going to take you and I'm going to drop you off in the absolute middle of nowhere, man. It's going to be crazy, and you might die if you don't choose the right thing. You don't make the right choice. I might drop you off in the middle of the city. I might drop you off in the middle of the Alaskan wilderness. We just don't know. And I get to take one thing. What would I bring? I'd bring a Bic lighter. Right there. A Bic lighter has really never let me down, man. They are hard to break. They're hard to beat. You can get them wet and you can dry them out in a fairly short period of time. Ferro rods are awesome, don't get me wrong, but it's never going to be as easy to start a fire with a ferro rod unless you have pre-made tinder. You've already got the tinder. It's never going to be as easy as this right here. With this, I can skip the tinder phase of fire starting and I can get myself a nice big fire, because if it's in the wintertime, and hopefully you're dressed appropriately, but if it's in the wintertime and I've got to spend the night out, I want a big old jumbo fire. And fire can do so much for you. Not only can it just keep you warm, but it just makes you feel good. It gives you a boost of morale that is sometimes lacking in a situation where you might be a little bit afraid, you might be a little bit lost, you might be confused. And if you've got some fire, you've got a little bit of warmth, you've got home. A fire makes it home. No camp is complete without a campfire, in my opinion. So this Bic lighter is what I would bring. Yes, I'm pretty good at friction fire. This is a yucca stalk that I have used to make hand drill fires. I've made probably hundreds of friction fires. Bow drills, hand drills, bamboo fire saws. I've done all the methods you can think of for the most part. And but it sucks. It's very labor intensive. It is weather dependent. It is material dependent. You will not always be in a place where you can conveniently find the materials to make a friction fire. What if it's pouring down rain, like bucketing down rain on you? You think you're going to make a friction fire in the pouring rain? Some survival expert out there is going to chime in and say, I could do it at any time, anywhere. They're probably lying. They are lying to you, because I know for a fact that you can't. If it's pouring down rain and you've got no shelter, such as this barn, to get in and out, even in a shelter such as this, if it's pouring down rain, just the humidity in the air makes a friction fire extremely difficult, if not impossible. So a reliable, ready-to-go flame like that, I tell you, man, that is an extremely valuable thing. And if you were to show this to one of our ancestors a couple thousand years ago, they would have thought you were a magician. Maybe they would have burned you, used this to burn you at the stake for practicing witchcraft. I don't know, but they eventually probably would have figured out how valuable this is. Yeah, and if you dropped me off in the middle of absolute nowhere, I didn't know where I was going, what time of year it was, this is what I would bring. I'd bring this one thing. But that's just me. You make your choice. Hopefully you already have in the comment section. Really do appreciate you guys watching, guys. I enjoy these conversations. I hope you really chime in the comment section. Until next time, what's the worst that could happen? Let's go on 3.